Hey, yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This is Smart TCG, and today I'm going to be going over Raging Bull EX in the post-rotation format. Post-rotation is quickly approaching, and Raging Bull EX is expected to be one of the most powerful decks in the format. So today, I'm going to be going over everything that you need to know about Raging Bull in the post-rotation format and exactly how I would be building it. So with that being said, if you enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and let's hop right into it. Alrighty, hopping into it here, we have some cards that were pretty important to Raging Bull in the past that are going to be rotating out with the rotation. Rotation is going to be happening soon and is going to rotate out cards with that regulation F mark. And Pokestop and Radiant Greninja are two very important cards that will be leaving the standard format. Pokestop, very important staple card in this deck that allowed it to be really aggressive at the very beginning of the game, along with that Radiant Greninja as well. These were two really important cards that allowed Raging Bull to be able to consistently hit those turn one knockouts. However, without these cards, this deck is going to need to be built a little bit differently. One of the biggest things that's going to change with this deck is actually choosing to go first. Raging Bull was a deck that a lot of players like to go second with, as you'd be able to pretty consistently get that turn one attack. However, with how the deck is being built now, with cards like Pokestop and Radiant Greninja rotating out, you need to play the deck a little bit more conservatively. So with that being said, let's hop into the main engine that this deck is going to be using for the post rotation. Alrighty, so hopping into it here, this is going to be the support system that we are going to be using. We have the Fan Rotom Noctowl engine. Since we typically aren't going to be able to consistently hit knockouts on that first turn like we used to, due to cards like Radiant Greninja and Pokestop leaving the standard format, we're going to want to build this deck a little bit more for the second and third and fourth turn of the game, as opposed to going all in on having an explosive first turn. And that's where the Noctowl engine is really powerful. We have that Fan Rotom to get multiple Hoothoots on the board and also put Noctowls into our hand. Then we have Noctowl with that Jewel Seeker, which can only be used if you have a Terra type in play. Raging Bull thankfully heavily relies on that Teal Mass Ogerpon, which is a Terra type, so we'll be able to use that Jewel Seeker on the second turn of the game to be able to search your deck for trainer cards to allow you to hit those big one-hit knockouts consistently. This version of the deck is actually a lot more stable towards the end of the game than the previous Radiant Greninja and Pokestop build, just because one Noctowl pretty much reads you get to set up everything that you need to be able to take a knockout on that turn. So I actually really like this deck towards the end of the game. It's a lot more stable than I feel like it used to be. Yes, you don't necessarily have that explosiveness, but if anyone of you have tested the post-rotation format, things have kind of slowed down. Decks are a lot slower. There are a lot of, heavy setup-based decks. So not attacking on the first turn is not really the end of the world. So having this, kind of slower, more stable build actually feels totally fine, because a lot of other decks in the standard format have gotten drastically affected by losing, powerful cards that were often played in turbo decks like Pokestop and Radiant Greninja. Next up, we have some other really important support cards that I think have a lot of potential in this deck for the expected metagame. We have Crispin and Cornerstone Mass Ogerpon. Crispin is a great card to pull energies out of your deck to get them loaded onto cards like Raging Bull, especially if your opponent is using the card like Budu and you don't have energies in the discard pile. Being able to, use that Crispin, get energies onto Raging Bull, and take the knockout is really good. But it's actually really important right now in this metagame to be able to power up Cornerstone Mass Ogerpon EX. Cornerstone Mask is a really important card right now because of that Cornerstone stance ability, which reads, prevent all damage from attacks done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon that have an ability. Now, there's a very popular deck that has been seeing success in Japan with Farigiraf in it, and Farigiraf is a card that makes it so that your basic Pokemon EX cannot damage it. So if you don't play Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon and you play against a Farigiraf deck, you're typically just going to get ran over. It's very difficult to play against. But if you play the Cornerstone Mass Ogerpon, Farigiraf has an ability, so that means it can't do any damage to Cornerstone. And Cornerstone also has a really powerful attack which deals 140 damage, but the powerful thing about it is that this attack isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon, meaning it hits through something like a Farigiraf. On top of it, Farigiraf can't deal damage back to it because of that Cornerstone stance, turning your Farigiraf matchups from normally very difficult matchups into almost auto wins. So that's a really important combination that I really wanted to mention, as without these cards, your matchups against all these wall decks are going to be significantly worse. But if you do have Cornerstone and also that Crispin, you'll be able to power up that Cornerstone very quickly, and you can be able to take down those wall decks. Next up here, we have Slither Wing. Slither Wing is really important right now in this post-rotation format because of Pikachu EX. Pikachu EX is seeing quite a bit of play in the popular Tord Box Ogerpon deck that a lot of the top Japanese players have been playing, and also multiple notable players like Tord Reklev. I know that Rahul Reddy as well placed quite well at the Champions League most recently a couple of weeks ago. So that deck really relied in certain situations on Pikachu EX, especially against those turbo matchups. But now that you have access to Slither Wing, you're going to be able to use that Burning Turbulence to be able to knock out Pikachu EX, because Burning Turbulence deals 120 times weakness is 240, which with the Resolute Heart ability reduces down to 190. However, the Slither Wing's attack Burning Turbulence also burns Pikachu, so that Slither Wing is going to be able to take a knockout on that Pikachu because of that burn effect, which is really, really nice. So Slither Wing is a great inclusion in this deck, as it does hit one-shots on important cards like the Pikachu EX. You could also play something like the Baby Raging Bolt that does snipe. That is another card that you could potentially include that I think has some potential. Alrighty, hopping into it here, we have my Raging Bolt list. I'm going to be kind of going over exactly the reasoning behind certain cards and also why I think Raging Bolt is strong right now. But if you are just looking for that export of this list, you can go check out the description. It'll be there. But starting off with why I think Raging Bolt is good. Well, typically at the very beginning of formats after rotation happens, a lot of top decks can run into some consistency problems because the card pool is much smaller, which means that powerful consistency cards in previous sets have been rotated out. For example, this rotation is going to get rid of a crazy amount of really powerful consistency cards that have been staples in the Pokemon TCG for quite some time. We have cards like Radiant Greninja, Pokestop, Luminion V, Rotom V, and also Seal Stone. Those are just some of the critical cards that we are going to be losing. Yes, Raging Bolt does lose cards like Radiant Greninja and Pokestop as well. However, it can easily adapt with the Noctowl and Fan Rotom engine to be able to cover those consistency losses, whereas decks like Dragapult don't really have a replacement to really important cards like Luminion, Seal Stone, Rotom, and also Lance as well. So that deck is going to be hit quite a bit from losing really crucial consistency cards, but this deck has easy replacements. So typically at the beginning of formats, there are quite a few clunky decks that see play. This is a deck that doesn't really struggle with that. It's very, very consistent, able to achieve its board states, and really powerful, especially at the end of the game with cards like Fezandipiti and access to Noctowl to find those final pieces that you need to win games. So let's start off with the card counts here. We have 3 Teal Mass Ogerpon. I had 4 at one point, but I felt like 3 was totally fine. You have plenty of bench space, but there are a lot of other cards that you want to put on the field. Yes, you do have Area 0, but you need to get down multiple Hootoots, also Fan Rotom as well. So I felt like you typically weren't ever putting 4 Ogerpon in play. 3 felt kind of like that perfect number. Typically in most games, you only need 2. We pretty much play the third one just for sometimes those like unique situations where you put 3 down, but also just so you don't prize one because the card Suing Heavy Ball has rotated out. 3/3 Noctowl as well, 3 Raging Bolt. 3 Raging Bolt has felt totally fine because you have access to double Night Stretcher, so you can get those back pretty consistently. 2 Fan Rotom, 1 Squawkabilly, 1 Latias EX for that free retreat. Very nice to have on the board. You got the bench space, so doesn't hurt to have that on the field. Also very good versus Badoo decks as well. If a deck tries to, maybe Badoo trap something, maybe like a Raging Bolt with no energy, you get that free retreat, being able to go to one of your attackers and kind of get out of that lock situation. 1 Fezandipiti EX as well for that consistency, 1 Slither Wing 2, and 1 Cornerstone Mask EX. For the supporters, we have 4 Professor Sada's Vitality, 2 Crispin as well, 1 Iono, and 1 Boss's Orders. I have considered going up to 2 Boss's Orders. I might cut down to 1 Crispin, but you can run into some problems if you do prize that Crispin. So currently I have 2, but I have been considering going up to a second Boss's Orders in this deck. You do have Pal Pad though, so kind of makes up for it. 4 Nest Ball, 4 Ultra Ball, and 3 Earthen Vessel. 2 Energy Retrieval as well, along with 2 Night Stretcher, 1 Switch, 1 Pal Pad, and 1 Prime Catcher. Prime Catcher, still the A-spec of choice. I think it's the strongest one for this deck. Being able to draw a bunch of cards and then have a gust effect is just so powerful. So being able to utilize that Prime Catcher is really, really good. Also quite easy to find as well with cards like Noctowl. Next up, we have 1 Bravery Charm and 2 Area 0. 1 Bravery Charm has felt fine, although I do think it is cuttable, and 2 Area 0 has felt like the perfect count. You could go up to 3, but there aren't a whole lot of times where you have to keep at 8 bench Pokemon, so 2 has kind of felt like that perfect count. Hopping into the basic energy here, we have 6 grass energy, 3 lightning energy, and 3 fighting energy to round out the list. This is currently where I am at right now. I've been really enjoying it. It felt like it's been setting up pretty consistently, and I definitely have a lot of faith in it moving forward. So with that being said, that is post-rotation Raging Bolt. Let me know what you think of the deck in the comments. Let me know if you think the deck is a top contender. Let me know if there's any other cool cards that you think could be good in this deck. I'd love to hear from you. So with that being said, thanks so much for all the support as always. I appreciate it. If you enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. We're getting really close to 10,000 subscribers, so excited to hit that milestone. We will be doing a giveaway as well once we do hit that. But anyways, this is Smart TCG. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll speak with you again soon. Peace out.